Handcuffed for no reason, this black man's inspiring call to his brother reveals amazing justice. Marcus had just clocked out from another exhausting shift, a greasy burger joint in a neighborhood that breathed life but struggled to survive. At 24, he juggled 2 jobs, flipping burgers and delivering groceries, all to help his single mother who's poured her heart and soul into making their little home feel warm and safe. As nightfall draped the streets of Chicago, he was eager to return, a world of love and dreams waiting for him. But as he walked along the cracked pavement, the comforting sounds of the neighborhood were suddenly drowned by the sharp commands of police officers. "Get on the ground!" They shouted, and before he could process what was happening, Marcus found himself thrust down onto the cold hard concrete, handcuffs biting into his wrists. It was surreal, a nightmare unfolding in slow motion. The faces of people in the crowd morphed into a blur of shock and pity, their eyes reflecting not just concern, but a shared understanding of the injustice that permeated their lives. Why is this happening? He thought, his heart sinking beneath the weight of humiliation. With trembling hands, he pulled out his phone and dialed his older brother, Derek. "They're arresting me for no reason." His voice quaked, and it was not just fear that gripped him, it was the anger of injustice. He needed Derek, needed his brother's strength and authority more than ever. Derek rushed to the scene, his heart pounding with worry for Marcus. A local veteran, he held respect within the neighborhood, but on this particular night, he was also a furious brother. He arrived to the site of his sibling, his baby brother, the face of hope and resilience, being treated like a criminal. The tension crackled in the air as he confronted the officers. He demanded to know why, voice firm with authority, while the murmurs of a supportive crowd swelled behind him. "Enough is enough," he proclaimed, rallying those around him, igniting a spark of vigor that had long been dormant. Stories of bias and discrimination began to pour out from the crowd, tales of siblings, parents, and friends suffering the same plight. Their voices mingled into a powerful chorus of shared struggle. Together, they transformed this moment into a catalyst for change. Derek quickly organized a town hall meeting, vehemently urging the community to gather, to unite, and support Marcus. "We're going to stand together," he proclaimed, as the crowd erupted into agreement, the collective spirit swelling with determination. "How can I be a light in the darkness?" Marcus wondered, the night air heavy with unresolved tension as fear clashed with hope. At the meeting, burdened by the unbelievable weight of experience, he stood before those familiar faces, not merely as a victim, but as a beacon of resilience. "I have a vision," he started, voice shaky yet filled with passion. Among the cries for justice, uncertainty loomed overhead, an ominous police announcement echoing in his mind. Would this newfound courage rewrite his story? Would it uphold the dignity he longed to reclaim? As the crowd clung to his every word, the air thick with anticipation, a wave of uncertainty swept over him. But this was not merely a moment of fear, this was the genesis of a new chapter, a pivotal turning point for their community. The next steps were fraught with challenges, yet entwined with the limitless potential for overhauling the narrative that so often silenced their voices. The town hall meeting was electric. Each face in the crowd glowed with purpose, fueled by the collective desire for change. Marcus felt the energy envelop him like a warm embrace, but doubt still clung to his heart. Could he truly be the light they needed? His palms were slick with sweat as he prepared to speak again. The room dimmed, and all eyes fixed on him. Marcus cleared his throat, the echo of his earlier words still reverberating. "This isn't just about me," he began, the weight of his experience dawning upon him again. "This is a fight for everyone." He shared his story, weaving in the heartache of the unjust. His voice began to steady, gaining strength with each new testament he shared. In another corner of the room, a woman named Mrs. Collins, a retired teacher, watched closely. Her heart raced with recognition as she recalled moments of her own sons facing similar treatment. She could feel the tears prick her eyes, a familiar ache rising within her chest. After the meeting, she approached Marcus. "You spoke for so many of us," she said softly, clasping his hands in hers. Thank you for being brave." Around them, murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Soon, others stepped forward, voicing their own stories of pain and resilience. One by one, they shared their narratives, forming a vibrant tapestry of shared struggle. A retired nurse spoke of being pulled over on her way home, unjustly accused of reckless driving. A local store clerk revealed how he had been followed around in his workplace, treated like a criminal in a place he had served for years. Marcus looked around, the faces no longer mere strangers but allies bound by their experiences. Their stories intertwined like roots of a tree, feeding each other's resolve to rise and fight against the injustices they faced together. During the meeting, Derek remained engaged, his eyes gleaming with pride at Marcus. He could see the fire igniting in his brother's eyes, a glimmer of leadership developing within him. This was more than just about correcting a wrong, it was about forging a path forward for the community. As the night came to a close, Derek stood up, rallying everyone. "Let us take this energy into action. We need to hold a march, gather our voices, and show Chicago that we will not be silenced." His voice reverberated with authority, igniting excitement in the room. Cheers erupted, echoing dreams of change. Plans began to form, and momentum surged. The next weeks would be full of preparations and scattered meetings, but camaraderie thrived amidst it all. As they organized each parade and speaker's outline, hope started to feel tangible. The people felt a surge of purpose, believing in the possibility of a brighter future. Yet, amidst their victories, shadows loomed. Outside, whispers began circulating about the upcoming march. The city's law enforcement was uneasy. Marcus could feel an unsettling chill creeping in, accompanied by a creeping sense of dread. As he left the hall that night, he glanced at the sky, a canvas of stars twinkling with hope, but with dark cloud banks looming in the distance. Would their voices rise above the storm, or would they be threatened into silence again? The question hung heavy, a portent of what would come. Awareness of the growing tension stirred in his gut. How far would they go to remain heard? What would it cost? As determination clashed with apprehension, Marcus took a deep breath, readying himself to fight for every moment that lay ahead, for him, and for everyone who dared to dream of change. What would happen next would test their unity like never before. The days that followed the meeting were a whirlwind. Marcus barely found time to breathe, let alone sleep. Every moment was filled with planning sessions, flyers to print, and calls to local leaders. The energy in the community was palpable, like a live wire buzzing through the streets. Yet, the ominous murmurs about the march could not be ignored. It crept into every conversation, every smile shared felt tinged with tension. One afternoon, as he prepared the speech he would deliver at the march, Marcus found himself alone on his porch, the quiet of the neighborhood settling around him. He leaned back in his chair, the cool breeze brushing against his face, but the weight in his chest remained heavy. He picked up his phone, scrolling through the supportive messages flooding in friends, acquaintances, even strangers who had been touched by his words. Everyone seemed to believe, to trust in the change that was coming. But doubt gnawed at him like a hungry dog. "Hey, bro," Derek's voice broke through his spiraling thoughts. Marcus looked up to see his brother leaning against the porch railing, a reassuring smile stretched across his face. "You okay? You look deep in thought." "Just thinking about how far we've come and how far we still have to go," Marcus admitted, running a hand through his hair. "I feel like I'm about to lead everyone off a cliff, and I can't shake the feeling that our voices might not be enough." Derek joined him on the porch and leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. "You carried the weight of our family for years, Marcus. This is just one more step in that journey. You've got everyone behind you, and I know they will feel your fire. Just look at Mrs. Collins. She could have stayed silent, but she stood up. That's because of you." Marcus smiled faintly, the warmth of Derek's conviction slowly thawing the frost of doubt in his heart. But what if the police retaliate? What if it all backfires? Then we stand taller. You won't let fear silence us, right? Derek's gaze sharpened, fierce and unwavering. Our history is riddled with moments like these. This march is a chance to rewrite that history, not just for us but for those who come after. We owe it to them to try. The conviction in Derek's voice sent a ripple of strength through Marcus. He thought of all the stories they had shared in the past few weeks, the courage of the community, the legacy they were building. It was about more than just a march, it was about standing up for every voice that had been stifled for too long. "Okay," Marcus said, clenching his fists, igniting his resolve. "Let us do this." As the days rolled into the night before the march, excitement buzzed through the community. Banners were painted, chants practiced, and hearts united, all fueled by the hope of change. But as Marcus lay in bed, sleep evaded him. The unfinished business of bravery echoed in his mind. The fear of consequence was real, darkening the bright vision they had painted together. Then a voice, unexpected yet familiar, whispered through Marcus' thoughts. "What are you willing to sacrifice for this fight?" It wasn't just a question, it was a challenge. With his heart racing, Marcus turned on his side, staring at the ceiling and clenching his jaw. He knew fear was merely a sentinel, marking the edge of his courage. The next day would be monumental, a defining moment for their community. How far could they go? And at what cost? As he closed his eyes, the questions circled, relentless and urgent. There was no turning back now. Tomorrow, everything could change. The dawn would not bring silence, it would roar with the voices of those who dared to stand. Would they rise or be brought down? The stakes had never felt as high. The sun rose slowly, casting a golden hue over the neighborhood. Marcus felt the warmth on his face, but it did little to ease the chill in his bones. He stood up and pulled on the shirt he had left out the night before, the one with a simple slogan that had turned into a rallying cry. Today, that shirt would carry more than just ink, it would carry hope. He stepped outside, the crisp air filled with the scent of morning dew mixed with the faint smell of coffee from across the street. People were already gathering, faces bright with anticipation and determination. Friends and neighbors came together, forming a vast tapestry of humanity, each thread woven with their stories of struggle, dreams, and an unwavering desire for change. "Marcus!" a voice shouted. It was Mrs. Collins, her eyes wide with excitement and worry. "Did you finish your speech? You know how everyone is counting on you." He nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, I've got it. Just a few tweaks." His heart raced as he caught sight of the crowd assembling at the end of the street. They were chanting, their voices rising like a wave, crashing against the walls of fear and injustice. As he moved closer, Marcus felt the electricity in the air. People held signs aloft, demanding justice, equality, and respect. The spirit of resilience mixed with an undercurrent of anxiety. He spotted Derek motioning him over, a look of encouragement on his face. "Look at them," Derek said, waving a hand toward the crowd. "They believe in something bigger than themselves. You're leading this, man." Just then, an unsettling noise rippled through the crowd, a low hum of police sirens in the distance. A dark cloud swept over the sea of faces. The chants faltered, and Marcus could see the worry etched on his neighbors' faces. "Hey, listen," Marcus said, calling the group closer. "I know this is scary. I feel it too. But we're not backing down. Not now." With every word, he felt his own confidence build, the sounds of their shared determination igniting something fierce within him. They cheered, and Marcus took a deep breath, stepping onto a makeshift stage. The crowd silenced, eyes fixed on him, hope flickering in their breaths. It was time. "Today, we're here for clarity," he shouted. "For everyone who felt their voice silenced. For those who've been treated unfairly. We are reclaiming our power." It felt liberating, like the chains of doubt were breaking. His voice carried through the crowd, echoing back in a crescendo of cries for justice. But then, just as swiftly, the tension rose again as officers emerged from their vehicles. Uniforms, badges, and a palpable sense of authority swarmed the area. Stay calm, Marcus urged. They can't displace our voices. But deep inside, a fear that had haunted him for weeks clawed its way back. Would the march be met with violence? Would they be silenced? The officers approached, commands flying, and an uproar simmered beneath the surface. Marcus' heart raced. This was the moment that could change everything. It was either a call to arms or a path toward chaos. The crowd murmured, uncertainty creeping in like a cool fog, but just then, Derek squeezed Marcus' shoulder, steadying him. We stand together. We won't let fear govern us. The tension in Marcus' chest eased slightly. He felt the anchor of his brother's words. The sirens faded momentarily as the crowd took a collective breath. The eyes of the world seemed fixed on them. What would happen next? Would courage prevail, or would they meet resistance? As the police tightened their formation, Marcus knew he stood at a crossroads. He felt the weight of the moment and the expectations wrapped around them. One question burned in his mind: what would he do if it all fell apart? The truth dawned on him, fierce and bright. The power wasn't merely in the protest, it was in their unity. Would they find strength amidst fear, or would they let it consume them? With the stakes rising, he could feel the very air thick with anticipation, holding its breath. Would this march be the turning point they had all hoped for? Marcus stood at the edge of a turning tide, a storm brewing in the air as he looked out over the crowd. Faces of determination stared back at him, each one holding a piece of the resistance. The weight of their hopes and fears pressed on him, more palpable than the summer heat. He opened his mouth to speak again, but the words caught in his throat. The officers moved closer, their presence casting shadows over the vibrant energy of the march. Marcus felt his heart thud, each beat a reminder of the stakes involved. The murmurs of the crowd became a low hum, a nervous energy pulsing through the air like the creeping tendrils of fog. Suddenly, the lead officer stepped forward, a commanding figure with a stern expression. You need to disperse. This gathering is unauthorized. The words felt like thunder, reverberating not just through the crowd, but deep within Marcus. Panic ignited in the pit of his stomach. They had come too far for this. Listen, Marcus shouted, his voice shaking but resolute. This is our right. We're standing together to demand change, to fight for our voices. He could feel tension crackling like static, every gaze locked on him, silently searching for direction, for strength. Some members of the crowd raised their signs defiantly high, their slogans fluttering like flags in the wind. No justice, no peace, united we stand. Heartbeats quickened, and Marcus could sense the collective courage rising, but then, a woman in the front sobbed softly, and it pierced Marcus' heart. What if they heard us? She whispered, vulnerability breaking her brave facade. A few more nods of concern rippled through the assembly, and that spark of fear threatened to ignite into a wildfire of chaos. Hey, everyone! We're not here to fight. We're here to be heard. Marcus stepped down, pacing forward, allowing the distance between him and the officers to shrink. He could hear his own breath, rapid and shallow. Derek moved closer, pressing his shoulder against Marcus's. You've got this. We believe in you. An anchor in a swirling sea, those words pushed Marcus forward. He glanced at the crowd, drawing strength from the unity that thrummed in the air. Think about why we're here. He called out. For our children. For our families. For the future. We've cried tears of injustice for too long. The time for change is now. The crowd erupted, a collective roar of affirmation, their voices intertwining like a powerful melody. A ripple of resilience washed through them, erasing the tendrils of doubt. But the officer raised his hand, a signal demanding order. Disperse, or we will be forced to take action. The words dripped with finality, as a line of officers readied themselves. Marcus swallowed hard, but he felt a spark ignite within him, a flame fueled not by anger but by a profound belief in what they represented. We will not be silenced. He cried. They may wear badges, but together, we bear the weight of our truth. Suddenly, he turned and caught Derek's gaze. "What if they do arrest us?" he whispered. His heart pounded with the enormity of that question. A moment passed, the uncertain air thick enough to touch. "We'll face it together," Derek replied, his jaw set with determination. "Nothing worth fighting for comes easy." Marcus inhaled deeply, the crowd's energy surging through him. Could he really lead them through this? The fear topped with courage coursed within him, making it hard to breathe. If they remained united, they might just have the power to shift the tides of justice. "Let us show them that our voices matter." The chanting grew louder, a wave crashing against the barriers of fear. Yet, as the officers began to advance, Marcus knew this was just the beginning. The door to change swung open wider than ever. What awaited them on the other side? As the first officer moved to grab him, Marcus felt both terror and exhilaration. What would they do? Would this moment write their story in history, or would they fade into fear again? The answer lay just ahead as Marcus braced himself, a leap into the unknown. Would courage truly be their champion? Marcus felt a surge of adrenaline as the officer reached for him, his fingers brushing against the fabric of his shirt. He stood his ground, his heart racing like a drum. The voices of the crowd swelled around him, a steady ocean of defiance that urged him on. "Stop!" Derek shouted, stepping closer, but Marcus shook his head. No turning back now. He needed to face whatever was coming. "Are you going to arrest me for wanting change?" Marcus challenged, his voice gaining intensity. It was a bold question, one that echoed a sentiment many felt but few dared to voice so openly, especially to a figure of authority. The officer's eyes narrowed. "This isn't about what you want. Disperse, or you'll be taken in." The tension in the air thickened, as if it could be sliced with a knife. The crowd held its breath, waiting for someone to make a move. Then, amid the chaos, a little girl's voice piped up from the front. "Why can't we just talk?" Her innocence cut through the fear, and Marcus could see her small frame, clutching a sign, her wide eyes searching for understanding. A ripple of empathy washed over the crowd as they turned to look at her. "See?" Marcus pointed towards the girl. "We're not here to fight just to talk. We have the right to be heard. Aren't our lives worth discussing?" The officer hesitated. For a split second, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Marcus seized that moment. Every one of us has a story. Every one of us is here because we want to make things better for our families, for our children. His voice resonated as though woven into the very fabric of hope that bound the crowd together. With each passionate word, he drew strength from them, igniting flames of courage and determination. As more voices began to chant in unison, vowing to stand strong, the atmosphere shifted. Some onlookers joined in, a wave of solidarity moving from the heart of the crowd to the very edges. Around him, Marcus could see people starting to hold hands, a physical manifestation of their unity. They were scared, yes, but together they stood tall like a forest facing a storm. He could almost feel the ground beneath them, pulsing with collective spirit. The officer snapped back to attention, but even he seemed overwhelmed by the sheer force of their resolve. The crowd was transforming, blossoming into something far more than just a collection of individuals. They were becoming a movement. "Together, we raise our voices," Marcus cried, feeling the surge of energy ripple through him. "We are not here to threaten, but to demand justice. If you choose to arrest me, then know that you will also be carrying the weight of our truth." The officer stepped back slightly, uncertainty creeping in as the crowd grew more animated, unified in their passion. Marcus had shifted the energy. They weren't just voices anymore, they were a force. In that moment, something shifted in the air. A small breeze picked up, carrying with it the scent of possibility. Would this spark be enough? The officer looked unsure, glancing back at his fellow officers. It felt like the moment hung in the air, a fragile balance between escalation and resolution. The stakes were high, but the heart of the crowd beat louder still. What would the officer decide? Would they truly make a stand for justice today, or would they fall back into silence? In the crowd, he caught Derek's gaze once again. "Step forward." Derek mouthed to him, eyes filled with hope. It felt like a challenge, one that could lead to either liberation or deeper conflict. That sudden choice loomed, filled with the weight of countless lives, when suddenly, a commotion broke out at the edge of the gathering. Marcus's eyes widened. What now? Would this moment of uncertainty shatter the courage they had just built? The air crackled with tension as Marcus turned toward the source of the commotion. A loud shout cut through the crowd, followed by the sound of feet pounding against the pavement. Every head turned to watch a group of young men sprinting toward the gathering, their faces painted with a mix of urgency and excitement. "Come on, everyone. You won't believe what we just found." One of them yelled breathlessly. The crowd murmured, confusion mixing with curiosity. Marcus felt a flutter of hope, wondering if this was another piece of fate coming together. He glanced at Derek, who raised his brow, clearly asking what was happening. "Stay focused." Marcus shouted back to the crowd, but his own intrigue was piqued. With the officer's unsteady stance providing a sliver of opportunity, they needed to hold on to this momentum. The young men, now at the front, gasped for air before finally collecting themselves. "We've got evidence. A video of what happened last week." One of them exclaimed, pulling out a phone. The words hung in the air, electrifying. "Show it! Show it!" The crowd clamored, their voices blending into an excited buzz. People shifted, straining to see as the young man tapped his screen, eager anticipation flooding every corner of the gathering. As the video began to play, silence fell over the crowd. It showed a chaotic scene: a dark street, sirens blaring in the distance. Flashing lights illuminated a man on the ground, hands raised in submission. A voice, calm but firm, echoed in the background. It belonged to the same officer now looming over Marcus. "This isn't right," someone whispered from the back, and murmurs of agreement rippled through the mass of people. The tension surged again, but this time it mingled with a sense of camaraderie that felt almost intoxicating. Hope surged anew within Marcus. This wasn't just a protest, this was a moment for accountability. The officer, who had stood resolute moments before, stared at the screen, tension creasing his brow as he watched his own actions unfold in front of the crowd. "Look at what you're protecting!" Marcus shouted, his voice filled with fervor. "How can we trust a system that allows this?" Faces in the crowd twisted with shock, anger, and determination as they processed the footage. It was as if a collective consciousness ignited. They rallied around the truth now laid bare before them. Hands tightened in solidarity, some even raising their signs higher. "That's what we're fighting against," Marcus continued, stepping closer to the officer, who was visibly shaken. "This isn't just about me. It's about everyone who has ever been silenced or victimized. This is our truth." Still caught off guard, the officer glanced down, a moment of vulnerability, humanity melting the tough exterior. The weight of this confrontation felt heavy in the air, filled with unsaid words and potential change. Then, suddenly, a voice in the crowd broke the moment. "What's your name? What's your badge number?" A ripple of demand surged, the question bursting forth like a flame igniting the rest of the crowd. "Tell us." Others echoed, emboldened. The officer hesitated, looking back at his fellow officers. Backup hadn't come yet. The tension surged as people pressed closer, voices rising with each heartbeat. "What will you choose?" Marcus pressed, locking eyes with the officer, his spirit pushing against the barrier of authority. "Will you stand with us? Or will you turn away?" All the chaos, hope, and desperation boiled down to one pivotal moment. An answer could change everything. Would he answer the call for justice or retreat into his doubts? And as that silence hovered between them, Marcus's heartbeat echoed in his ears. This was the moment that could rewrite their story. Would they finally summon the courage to face the truth together? The officer shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting around as if searching for a way out. The tension was palpable, the crowd closing in like waves at high tide. Each heartbeat felt louder than the last, drums of change calling for a response. Marcus could see the internal battle waging within the officer. He could almost feel the weight of the badge resting on the man's chest, heavy with expectations and fears. This was more than just a job, it was a calling. But in that moment, the officer held the power to decide which side of history he would stand on. "Just take the first step," Marcus urged, his voice steady. "Name yourself. Show us you're here for us, or tell us you're with the system that has failed us." The weight of those words sent a shiver through the crowd, a powerful challenge hanging in the air. Minutes seemed to stretch into infinity as the officer remained silent, his fists tightening at his sides. The murmurs grew louder, a supportive chorus, urging him onward. Somewhere in the crowd, a woman put her hand over her heart, tears glistening in her eyes. She knew the officer's next words could either heal or wound deeper. A young girl at the front raised her sign high, her small frame trembling with passion. "You have the power," she shouted, her voice like a beacon cutting through the chaos. "We just want the truth." Marcus felt his chest tighten. It wasn't just his fight anymore. It was a movement, and every voice mattered. He stepped forward, inching closer to the officer. "You're a part of this community too. We need you to be brave, just for a moment." Finally, the officer exhaled slowly, almost as if he was readying himself to jump into icy waters. It's Officer Wade." His voice cracked like the heat shimmer on asphalt. "Badge number 207. Gasps rippled through the crowd, but Marcus could see a flicker of relief cross the officer's face. The weight began to shift. "What you saw on that video, it's not who I am," Wade continued, his voice gaining strength. "I believe in protecting people, not hurting them. I'm sorry I need to change how I do my job." "Yes." Marcus felt a surge of victory. The crowd erupted into cheers, a tidal wave of hope washing over them. There was power in that moment, the realization that their voices mattered and could create change. The officer stood there, unsure yet resolute, and that was the breakthrough they needed. But just as the celebration began to build, the sound of sirens pierced the air once more. The distant wailing grew closer, slicing through their shared joy with an undertone of dread. It was police backup arriving, and Marcus could see the fear return to Officer Wade's face. "Get ready!" Someone shouted, and the collective energy turned from joy to anxiety. Would they recognize what was happening? Would they crush this change before it could grow? Panic fluttered in Marcus's chest as he took in the scene, unsure of what would happen next. He locked eyes with Wade, whose look mirrored his own, torn between his fellow officers and the people who stood before him, ready to fight for justice. "Stay strong, Wade," someone called, the crowd rallying again. "This is your moment. Stand with us." Marcus took a deep breath, preparing for whatever came next. The tension hung heavy. Would the arrival of more officers extinguish the spark that had just ignited, or would it fan the flames of this new truth? As they awaited the uncertain future, Marcus realized one thing remained clear: it all hinged on this moment. What would Officer Wade choose to do now, with the world watching? Would he stand by those fighting for justice, or would he retreat into the shadows? The sirens wailed louder now, the sound of authority slicing through the electric atmosphere. In that heartbeat, the crowd held its breath. The people had come together, ignited by their shared pain, their hopes laid bare. Yet now, the figures of law enforcement appearing at the edge of the gathering felt like the approaching storm, a harbinger of uncertainty. Officer Wade stood tall, but the tension in his posture betrayed him. His gaze shot between his fellow officers and the crowd. The cheers that had risen moments earlier now faded into uneasy whispers. A sense of disbelief washed over Marcus as he fought to keep the momentum alive. He clutched the air and shouted, "Our voices matter. Remember what you just said, Wade. You're here for change." But Wade's expression faltered, uncertainty clouding his eyes. The officers forming a line barely a block away were not only his colleagues, they were the embodiment of the system he was trying to challenge. Marcus could see the struggle within him. Please. Wade's voice was barely a whisper, yet the crowd heard him. I want to help. A ripple of shock ran through the people. Hope danced back in their hearts. Were they witnessing something unprecedented? As they watched, another officer stepped forward, a grim look on his face. It appeared he'd been tasked with addressing the gatherings. Officer Wade. He called out, his tone demanding. What the hell are you doing? The tension thickened, every heartbeat a drum in the silence. Wade hesitated, looking first at his fellow officers and then back at the crowd, where faces were twisted in expectation, waiting for a miracle. Listen, he started, but the other officer wouldn't allow it. Get back in line. The command was sharp, like glass breaking. The crowd reacted, a surge of voices linking them together. No turning back. Stand with us, Wade. The chant took off, gaining strength with every repetition, echoing off the walls surrounding the scene, but now the backup had arrived, the line of police officers standing as a blockade. Marcus could feel the growing fear in his chest ripple through the crowd. Seeing the fear in Wade's eyes twisted something deep in Marcus. It wasn't just about one officer anymore, it was about the lives shaped by such moments. He raised his voice again, loud and clear. Hey, Wade. You're not just a badge. You're a person, like us. We believe in your strength. Show this crowd your heart. The officer looked torn in the chaos swirling around him. The weight of the badge, the expectations of his brothers in blue, tugged at him, but the air was thick with the cries for justice that begged him to stand firm. Wade wiped his brow and took a step forward. What do I say? He murmured as if speaking to himself, the sound trembling on the wind. Marcus felt the urgency. You tell them about honesty. You tell them you want to change. Right now, this moment is everything. Don't let it slip away. Wade locked eyes with Marcus, bravado flickering in a sea of uncertainty. The tension seemed to melt as he took a breath, seemingly preparing to speak. But before he could, the backup officer barked a command to disperse the crowd, framing Wade's moment with fear again. The edges of the crowd pulled tight around them, desperately sticking together. Marcus's heart raced. They needed this moment to go right. Would Wade join their fight, standing for justice, or would he retreat back into the rigid lines of authority? As he opened his mouth to speak, the world held its breath, waiting alongside Marcus. In that pivotal second, everything would change or nothing at all. What choice would he make? Would they finally catch a glimpse of hope, or were they about to watch everything they fought for slip away? The tension was electric, a palpable weight in the air, and all eyes focused on Officer Wade as he stood at the crossroads of his duty and his conscience. Marcus, heart pounding, stepped forward, urging Wade with every ounce of hope he had left. It's time to turn this around, he called out, to be a part of the change. Wade's face flickered with uncertainty, but beneath it, there was something else, a glimmer of realization perhaps, a connection that sparked between him and the crowd that had gathered. I want to stand for what's right, he shouted suddenly, surprising himself. There was a pause, a collective intake of breath as the crowd processed his words. I'm tired of this division. We all deserve better. The other officers jolted at his announcement, their expressions shifting between disbelief and alarm. Wade took a bold step forward. I will not back down. His voice rang out, gaining momentum as he locked eyes with those in front of him. The energy shifted again, the crowd turning from apprehension to an exhilarating surge of solidarity. Together. Marcus called, feeling the wave of hope pushing him forward. Let us unite our voices. He could see the community respond, spirits lifting as they raised their banners high, chants swelling like a powerful tide carrying them onward. Let us talk. Wade continued. Instead of facing each other as enemies, let us be allies. I want to hear your stories. I'm ready to listen. The conviction in his voice built, and wild excitement filled the air. What had seemed like an impossible bridge to cross now glimmered under the weight of shared determination. Yes. Yes. The crowd erupted, a collective cheer echoing through the streets, a powerful reminder of their unity. Power to the people. They chanted, their voices flowing like a vibrant river, carrying with it the energy of hope they had long yearned for. In that moment, Marcus felt his heart swell. He knew there would still be challenges to face, that justice wouldn't come easy, but today was a fierce victory in itself. The air hummed with energy, each person pulsing with pride. As the officers stood uncertain, slowly their numbers began to fade into the background. This wasn't about defiance anymore. It represented the potential for connection and understanding. It was a historic moment unfolding right before them. Wade turned, facing the other officers who had stood staunch against the rising tide of change. "It's time for accountability," he said firmly, his voice steady. "We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. No more silence." Cheers erupted from the community, a wave of emotion surging through. Derek, standing by Marcus, clutched his brother's shoulder, tears shining in his eyes. "Look at what you've done," he whispered, voice thick with pride. The support flowed both ways. Some officers began to nod, understanding beginning to seep in through the rigid facade. If one could recognize the humanity in the struggle, could others follow suit? As the sun dipped lower, casting a golden hue over the scene, Marcus took a moment to breathe it all in. They were standing together, transformed, united, and ready to foster change. Their voices, once stifled, now rang through the streets of Chicago, weaving around the corners and back along the alleys where echoes of injustice had long lived. In the glow of the setting sun, they felt hope blossom anew, a testament that they could be the change they wished to see. This wasn't just a protest, it was the birth of a movement, a pledge to fight together for the future of their families, to make the streets safe and the air filled with respect. Together, they marched on, hearts lifted, each and every one of them lighting the way toward a brighter tomorrow. And as they walked, united in purpose and strength, they knew in their souls they had taken the first step, a step toward healing and understanding in a world that desperately needed both. Now, dear friends, this is your moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories of transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let others discover the power of community. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. It matters, and your voice counts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. Only true fans understand how vital it is to support this channel through your actions. Let's keep this movement alive.